This class is in memory of Jared Orchen, and we will start today. We'll learn Parshat Behar, page 354. We will start to learn the Parshah, and we will speak about Shemitah, the Sabbatical. Want to start?
Adonai spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to Bnei Yisrael and say to them, when you come to the land which I give to you, the land shall be at rest, a Shabbos for Adonai."
Okay, when you come to the land of Israel, the land should have a Shabbos. There is a Shabbos for people, and there is a Shabbos for the land. Like Jews have to observe the Shabbos. Every 6 days we walk, on Shabbos we rest. The land is also a Shabbos. The land has to rest. Like human being have to rest, the land has to rest. A sabbatical. The whole concept of a sabbatical comes from Judaism. That people take a sabbatical in college professors, all of these people. The concept comes from straight from the Torah. Then when you come to the land of Israel, everybody were farmers. Then for 6 years you should walk the land, and you should rest on the Shabbos. Interesting enough, the Torah starts with speaking straight about the sabbatical. Then the Torah gets into the details about the 6 years. Come to the land, you should have a sabbatical. Even that you have to walk 6 years before you have a sabbatical, the goal is the sabbatical. Like the 6 days of the week, the goal is Shabbos. So too the 6 years of walking the land, the goal is the sabbatical. Now what is Shabbos? Shabbos is a statement that the world belongs to God. There's 1 day a week, I close down all my businesses. I'm not going to my office, I'm not going to my store, I'm not going to work anything. It's a day for God. To close down your business for a whole year, that's a real sabbatical. That's a real statement of who is the boss. It's really one of the hardest mitzvahs that Judaism ever offered. We'll get into it. Number 4.
Before we get there, this is very unusual. It says Adonai spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai. We don't see that very often.
That Rashi speaks about it. Why is Shemitah at Mount Sinai? All the mitzvahs are coming from Mount Sinai. Then to teach us that everything comes from Mount Sinai. That everything is from Mount Sinai.
Why doesn't it say for many of the other commandments, God told Moses on Mount Sinai?
Because Rashi says it's because there is certain things were not repeated in Deuteronomy that you think it's not from Mount Sinai. That's why it's written there. Basically, I think what the real message is to tell us the importance of this mitzvah. Because it's going to be such a challenging mitzvah. That's why we need to say God said that at Mount Sinai. It's like the 10 Commandments, so to speak. Because as the hardest mitzvah that a Jew has, for a full year, you have your ice cream store, close it down for a year, not for a Shabbos. You have your place, you close it down for a year. This is unbelievable. The test of this mitzvah is beyond belief. That's why we need it, that God should say, speak at the Mount Sinai.
Are you handing out free ice cream for a year?
No, you can't afford it.
It's a wonderful concept.
Yeah,
we should all be able to do that.
it.
No matter what we do.
Now that the farmers are going to be afford to do it. Okay, we'll get into it. Number 4.
But the 7th year shall be a Shabbos for the rest of the land, a Shabbos for Adonai.
No, I'm sorry, number 3.
Number 3. For 6 years you shall plant your field, and for 6 years you shall prune your vineyard, and you shall harvest its produce. But the 7th year shall be a Shabbos of rest for the land, a Shabbos for Adonai. You shall not plant your field, and you shall not prune your vineyard.
You should not. It's interesting about the land, the field. That's written. You should not plant the field. About the vineyard, it's written. You should not prune your vineyard. You should not take it. That I saw today that in a vineyard, the most important thing is the pruning of the vineyard. That's what keeps the whole machine going, the whole field going. That's the most important job in the vineyard. That's why the Torah is using the word pruning, not planting, not anything like this. But this is the most important thing.
No, here we're seeing that, obviously in the desert they don't practice this. It's only when you get to the land.
That's what the Torah says, when you
Right,
get into the land.
But it doesn't specify that that's specifically for Israel. So Where do we learn, or is that just...
No, when you come to the land that I'm giving you. Which
No, I
land
understand,
God is
that's in
giving us.
Israel, but then we have the diaspora later.
No, no,
I mean,
no.
we don't, we still
God
celebrate
didn't give us,
Shabbos.
no. God didn't give us the land of diaspora. God says it's a clear mitzvah. When you come to the land that I'll give you, you will observe the sabbatical. It's a mitzvah only in Israel. Absolutely, yes. That's clearly in the Torah. It's the mitzvah of Shabbos is not dependent in a place. The Ten Commandments are every place, everywhere. God didn't say, when you come to the land, you should not kill. You should come to the land, you should not steal. God says, do not kill, do not steal. Honor your father and mother, observe the Sabbath. Here, God says, when you come to the land.
But we continue it during the time of the destruction of the temple. But the
We will
Jubilee-
get
Oh,
there.
sorry.
We will get there. We will get there. But we only continue it in Israel anyway. But we'll get there.
Rabbi, why would such a thing be put down on the people, since they were all agriculturists for the most part?
You're right.
That
There's a
seems like
reason.
it's
Very harsh.
very harsh, and
You know, many people ask me why God made us to observe the Sabbath. It's very harsh. We need to work 7 days a week. My business is Saturday, the main business. I need the business open. If I close down the business Saturday, my whole business isn't there. People tell me that about they have auctioneers. They say the whole business is Saturday, and many stores are the whole business on Saturday, and many places. Isn't it harsh to have a Shabbos?
this is a little tougher. This is
I
all
agree.
year.
I agree. But to do what Hashem, that's the whole idea is to remember that it all belongs to God. The sabbatical year says the land is not mine. The land is I have it for lease for 6 years, and the boss is God. And on the 7th year, it tells me, don't touch it. I don't touch it. You can go online. You'll see videos of people say, for me, the sabbatical is like Shabbos. All my machinery, all my things, I lock and close and finished. He doesn't touch it for a whole year.
This is today.
Today.
Wow.
We will get to it, but today, that's what's going on. Okay, but it's hard. I will agree, yes. It's a very hard mitzvah, but it's not the only hard mitzvah that we have. In Jewish history, we had many mitzvahs that other nations made it hard than us. And God promises that if we will observe the sabbatical, He will give us so much produce in the 6 years that will be enough
For
for
3
2
years.
years, or for 3 years even later, He says, for the Jubilee. Then if we do what Hashem, listen, some people work 1 day a week and have a lot of money, and some people work 7 days a week and cannot make it, right? Then it's all about the blessing of God. 1 day is a good day and you can close down the place for a week, right? And 1 day you can be there a whole week and nobody walks in to buy one thing. That's all the blessing of Hashem. We see it in our own eyes every day in our life. Then if you do what Hashem wants, Hashem will take care of you. That's what Shabbos is. Shabbos is a test of our faith in God. Shabbos, the regular Shabbos, and the Shabbos to God. There was once a guy used to come to the Rebbe for the Farbrengens, and he used to come from his workplace to the Shabbos afternoon. One day the Rebbe spoke about observing Shabbat. He had like I don't remember if it was a laundromat or a store. He put the keys on the table. Rebbe, it's your place. It's your store. The Rebbe gave him the keys back and told him it's yours for 6 days of the week. Then the same thing is here. God gives us the land for 6 years. It's on lease. It belongs to God, and we are lucky that He gives us to work the land for 6 years. Okay, and you need to understand, God gave us a land of Israel not to be like any other land. He wants us to remember and recognize God in the land. The land should recognize God, not just the people. That our justification to be in the land of Israel is the mitzvah of Shemitah, of the sabbatical. If you observe the mitzvah, even if you don't observe other mitzvahs, we will be on the land. It's a promise from God that we'll be on the land no matter what.
As long as we honor our mother and father.
As
right?
long as we observe the mitzvah of sabbatical. Honor mother and father should be live long. It's a different.
Isn't live long in the land?
And yeah, but it's more the live long than living in the land. But you're right. It depends which set of Ten Commandments, but it's another story. Now, 356, number 5.
Oh. Even crops that grew on their own from the seeds of your previous harvest you shall not reap, and the grapes of your untended vines you shall not gather. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. The produce of the land, Shabbos, year, shall be for yourselves for food. For you, your servant, and your maidservant, for your hired hand, and your resident sojourner who resided with you. Also your domestic animals.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
And for the wild,
Go ahead.
for the wild beasts that are in your land, and shall all of its produce be for food.
You know what it's written here? It's written here that the land should be for the 7th year ownerless. You and your servant and your worker, everybody is equal, has equal rights to the land. You think you're the boss. My land, I paid for it so much money. The 7th year, everybody is allowed, as Rashi explains it, everybody is allowed to go in and to collect, let's say, the oranges for the day. You can take home, not more than a day. I can take, even if it's my land, you can take when it's not your land, and everybody can come. Open the doors, the gates. Ownerless. Everybody is equal right to this land. You know what it means? You walk your land, you sweat, tears in blood, going there for 6 years, and the 7th year you say, guys, it's all yours. I'm just like you.
How long does that last?
I'm standing on a line
Year.
for a whole year.
For a whole year.
There's enough stuff for
Whatever is there, it's not, nobody has it. Finished.
So, but
Public
now
property.
with the vineyards though, you can't prune them. So you couldn't.
For yourself, you can.
You could.
Yeah, anybody can take for himself as much as he wants
per day.
for the day. But you cannot make business on it. You cannot take it for others.
So the concept of keeping the corners of the field for the poor, I mean, this really...
All of this is the
accentuates
6 years.
Yes.
The 7th year, it's all of this
The whole
makers
field.
the whole field is for everybody. The concept is that once in 7 years there is no rich and no poor. Everybody is equal. I mean, you're rich from the 6 years that you put in the saving account, but that year, everybody is equal.
What does this do for the ego of the landowner?
A lot. It's doing him a lot of good, that he remembers it's all from God. That's what the whole idea is. Okay, we'll continue on page 358.
He feels humble.
He feels very humbled. Okay, then here we have, then this is now, this is the mitzvah of sabbatical. Now the Torah says, when you come to the land. When you come to the land means when the most of the Jews will be in the land of Israel. That's how the rabbis learn it. That the majority of the Jewish people in the time of the temple, the sabbatical was a biblical mitzvah. Now that we don't have a temple, what do you observe in Israel? That the rabbis made a rule, said they should continue to observe the sabbatical, even there is no temple. And now it's a rabbinic law to observe the sabbatical year. Next year, it's going to be a sabbatical year in Israel. This coming Rosh Hashanah start a sabbatical year. Now, what are all the farmers going to do in Israel for the coming year? Close down.
Well, don't they lease it to the Arabs or something?
Okay. The right thing to do is to make it honorless. Shine. Sounds good, right? First of all, they cannot survive. That there is special fundraising to help the farmers who want to observe the sabbatical the right way, to help them to survive.
How many
That's one.
of the secular farmers follow this?
Oh. 110 years, 120 years, when the Jewish people started to make Aliyah to Israel, the first Zionist movement, and they started to buy land and to start become farmers, that the question became a serious question. What are you going to do? At that time, the greatest rabbis were in Poland and in Russia, that they wrote letters, what should you do? That they came up with an idea. Because it was at that time was a matter of life and death, was survival. They will not, if he doesn't have what to eat, it is. That they came up with the idea of selling the land to a non-Jew. By the majority of the Jewish opinion, and that's the Jewish law, a land that's owned by a non-Jew is not obligated to observe the laws of Shemitah. His land does not have to rest in Israel. Even in Israel I'm talking about. then even that there is some opinion who say that any fruit on the land of Israel any land cannot be walked, but the majority opinion, that's the law, is if it belongs to a non-Jew, he can walk the land. Therefore, what is the best idea? And a Jew can walk the land of a non-Jew, he can walk for him. Then they sell the land to a non-Jew, just like we do with the chometz. We sell the chometz to a non-Jew. And then we can walk, we sell the land to a non-Jew, and then we can walk the land. Sounds good, right? Simple, easy, and finished, done. There's a lot of issues with this. One of them, you don't really sell the land because you're not really ready that you should guide and come into cover. That if you don't really sell your land, is it really a sale? Is it real? And you go and you walk the land, you feel it's yours. You don't think it belongs to somebody else. But this, when you sell the land, then the fruits are not holy. It's the easiest way to go. But many people say that selling the land is like a cop-out. It's not the real way. They don't accept it. Even the secular farmers, that's what they do in Israel. They sell the rabbanut, the official rabbinat in Israel, organizes it, and everybody signs, is a piece of property, and they sell the land to an Arab, and that's how they get around it. That's one option. The other option is called Otzar Beidin. Beidin means it like this. Used to be a time, I said in the beginning, that every person can come and to collect the fruit for the day. Some guys, there is everything by Jewish people. Some guys used to go and take for a whole week and then sell it. Oh, now you want, I'll sell it to you. Finished. It's honorless. I got it, now it's mine, right? Now I can do whatever I want. Then the rabbis, at the time of the Talmud, the rabbis used to go and confiscate it, check your house. The Beit Din had people used to go, check it, leave it for the day, take the rest out. Instead, they came up with an idea that you give over the land to the Beit Din, to the court. And the court appoints people to protect the land, to harvest, whatever needs to be done, but they don't do it for business. They do it, you will only pay whatever it costs to take the workers, to keep it going. They will not plant new things, but they will keep the place protected, under control, without fights, and that's called the treasury of the Beit Din, Otzar Beit Din. Then some people today in Israel do it. Now, if it's Otzar Beit Din, it means the fruits are considered holy. It belongs to a Jew. Then you cannot throw it away. You cannot throw away fruit of Shemitah. You cannot, even the shell has to be protected, has to be treated in a better way, because it's holy fruit. You have to wait until it spoils and then only to throw it away. Even then you do it in a different way. Then many people will buy from Otzar Beit Din. For example, the etrogs.
Next year, what's going to happen?
Then this year it's not a problem. The year later, you understand? This year the etrog grew up in this year. For this Sukkot it's not a problem. For the next Sukkot, for the year after the Shemitah. Then to sell it to a Gentile, it's one way. But many people don't accept it. That they give it over to the Beit Din, and the Beit Din controls it. Now, how they do it today? The Beit Din, instead of a Beit Din should go and appoint people, and they tell you, sell it to us, and now we make you the owner, you become our worker automatically. That basically nothing changes, just a legal thing, just a formal signing agreement. And the owner continues to do everything to the land, protects the land, everything. Not everything, I think, is allowed by the Beit Din, only to make sure, and he sells it, but he's not allowed to make money. You're not allowed to make money with fruit of Shemitah. That you're allowed to make as much to cover the expenses, but not to make more money. Anyway, in this kind of business, there's very little margin there. Then many farmers say we don't make money here. Even when we sell at the same price we made last year, we will still not make money. For many other reasons, because we couldn't do this, we couldn't do this.
I have this question because you started off with the biblical Shemitah, and this was a rest of the land for God, and because of that, God would reward these people with produce, etc., for the next year, the next year. So now these farmers in Israel are trying to observe this cycle.
Yes.
Where's the intervention with God to protect them?
How you know that He doesn't protect them?
I'm asking you.
You meet them, they're doing well, don't worry. They're doing very well. Israel in the agriculture, as an agriculture country, is one of the miracles of the world, of our generation.
True.
They teach everywhere in the world, in Africa, everywhere, how to do irrigation and so many things. Now, between the two problems, I mean, if you don't sell it to the Arab or to the Gentile, if you don't give it over to the Beit Din, if you really observe the Shemitah as it is, as it's written in the Bible, the problem with this is that let's say you sell flowers to Europe. If 1 year you don't sell flowers, the customer will go somewhere else, right? If you don't sell wine, they will go somewhere else. They will not come a year later to, oh, I'm here back, and Shekoyach, we already met another guy. That's why it's a very hard mitzvah. Now, what happens, even the harder part is, I might speak about it on Shabbos, the people observe Shemitah. They say, we don't buy from any land that they sold it to a non-Jew with this chokhmah, or to the Beit Din. We want the real thing. We want to observe Shemitah. Where they buy the produce?
From the Arabs, from Palestine.
For the Palestinian Authority, right? You understand the problem?
Really, I didn't think they did too much with agriculture.
Very big in agriculture. That's their main business. A lot of agriculture. All the Hebron is full with vineyard. That all belongs to them. Sure. Produce. They're agriculture people forever. Then, whatever you do in Israel,
It's a problem.
but that's why this mitzvah is such a hard mitzvah. Because to observe the mitzvah the right way, it's first of all, there is hotels and this, and where are they going to buy them? And that's why every Shemitah, you'll see, as the Rosh Hashanah comes, you'll see articles in the New York Times, in the Time magazine, and all the big newspaper about this argument. What's the right way? Should we sell it to the Arabs? No. Should we give it over to the Beit Din? No. We should observe the real Shemitah. When you observe the real Shemitah, you are supporting your enemies. Whatever you do is wrong.
What about people that work today? Or their business is open on Saturday. They can do the same thing as.
What do you mean?
They can
Sell
do
to
the
the,
same- they can do the
there
same
is a
thing.
way to sell it to the non-Jew the day of Shabbat, to give over the ownership of Shabbat to a non-Jew. Yes, there is such a thing. Yeah, it's being done.
So if the rabbis can institute this as a rabbinical thing
To observe the
its
Shemitah. Yes.
why didn't they do that the same thing for the Jubilee year?
Oh, we're not in the Jubilee. You're ahead of your time, my friend. We are getting to the Jubilee, but now we're talking about Shemitah. Let's first digest the whole idea that once in 7 years, for 6 years you work your land, and it's not you on 6 years. Let's say you bought your land this year, next year you have to stop. Now you listen to the farmers, they have machinery and lease, they have to pay for it. They lease the land, they have to pay for it. They say the bank doesn't want to for Shemitah. They have to pay for everyone. Then the government is subsidizing the people who are observing the Shemitah, is helping them a lot.
If I understand right, this thing is all about to let land rest.
Yes.
So if we don't let land rest on that year and using it by somebody else, how land rest?
The land has to rest when it's owned by a Jew. If it's not owned by a Jew, it's not our business.
So it should rest.
It's not that the bottom line is not all land of Israel rests anyway, because many parts are owned by non-Jews. The land that's owned, the obligation is on the Jew. That if he owns land in Israel, he has to make sure that the land rests. And he has to rest. What was the idea of a rest for the Jew? At that time, everybody were agriculture, they were all farmers. They should 1 year, like 1 day a week you dedicate to God to learn Torah. 1 year of the cycle should stop and dedicate for spirituality.
That's how I understand it.
Then that's all nice and fine, but there is the practical law, the obligation, then there is the spiritual side for it. Spiritual side for it, the land should rest, the person should rest, that's all nice and fine. But there is, if the land is not yours, you're allowed to work it. I mean, when somebody is a lawyer, he doesn't have to rest, he doesn't have to give time for God. God doesn't demand him. Obviously, God demanded from the land. As long as you do it by the Jewish law, it's kosher.
From the questions that I'm hearing here as well, it seems like the concept of descent and ascent also figure into this equation. Because individuals are saying, okay, how am I supposed to do this? It's going to take something from me. So you have to descend. But once that descent has come to its bottom point, then the ascent occurs. So there's a spiritual awakening.
You're right. You're right. Then let's continue on page 358. Now we'll go to the Jubilee part.
You'll bet.
Thank goodness.
Right.
Go ahead. Where are we at? 7
Number 8.
So, yeah,
or 8?
you'll count for yourself, so.
We're right there. There you go. You shall count for yourself 7 sabbatical years, 7 years, 7 times, and it shall be for you the days, period, of 7 sabbatical years, 49 years.
Now he says about the Jubilee. 7 times 7. You observe the 7 sabbaticals. Now you're at 9. The year 49 is a sabbatical. The year 50 is again a sabbatical. It's a Jubilee. It's even more than a sabbatical. Now you have to rest the land once in 50 years, for 2 years, not for 1 year. Okay, you want to continue?
You shall make a proclamation with the shofar on the 10th day of the 7th month. On Yom Kippur shall this shofar proclamation be made throughout all your land.
Okay, on the 50th year on Yom Kippur, they used to blow the shofar. That was the announcement of the Jubilee year. This that we have today a custom to blow the shofar by the end of Yom Kippur is really to a point and continuation of this tradition. Actually, blowing the shofar in such a clear way is only about the Jubilee.
Is there a correlation between this and the counting of the Omer?
Yes, absolutely. We'll get to it in a minute. Yes.
Okay.
Then you blow the shofar. It's actually about Rosh Hashanah when it's written. It's not written, it's written Yom Teruah, a day of blowing. The word shofar is not written on Rosh Hashanah in the Torah. We learned about Rosh Hashanah just, I think, last week it was about, is it about blowing of the shofar? Let's see. Yeah, I think it was last week.
Sure.
If you look on page 333, 332, number 24, you want to read?
Speak to Bnei Yisrael, saying, in the 7th month on the 1st of the month shall be for you a day of rest, a remembrance of the sounding of the shofar, a holy assembly.
Okay, you realize that the word of the shofar is in parentheses?
It's Rashi.
A remembrance of the sounding, a holy assembly. We learned the idea of blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah from comparing it to the Jubilee. The Jubilee is the source for the blowing of the shofar. This Parshah. Then on the 50th year, you have to blow the shofar. And what do you do with this? What is this pronouncing? We'll go back to page 360, number 10.
You shall sanctify the year of the 50th year, and proclaim freedom in the land for all its inhabitants. It shall be for you a jubilee, and each man shall return to his ancestral land, and each man shall return to his family.
Okay, we'll start with each man return to the family, and then we'll talk about each land to come back to the land. Or maybe the opposite. We'll talk about the land. We're already talking about the land. You sell your land. You're from the tribe of Judah, and I'm from the tribe of Issachar. You sell me a piece of land. Before long, when the Jewish people entered the land of Israel, every tribe got a piece. The land was divided according to the tribes. If I sell you land and you sell him land, before long there is no tribes, there is no nothing. Then the Torah says you cannot sell your land. You lease your land for 50 years, until the Jubilee. The most for 50 years. Whatever if the Jubilee is 2 years from now, you can only lease your land for 2 years from now. You can never sell your land. Like Hong Kong was leased to England for 100 years. They built from it the biggest thing, and then they had to give it back to China. There was no Chochmah. The same thing is, the land in Israel can never be sold, can only be leased. And the 50th year, everybody gets back land. Then whenever I buy from you the land, I know to begin with that I'm buying it for 17 years, for 25 years, for 49 years, the most. But that's it. By the 50 years, it goes back to his original owner. Now, the same thing is about slaves. In Judaism, what's a slave? In Judaism, a slave is somebody who chose to sell himself as a slave, as we mentioned many times. Kidnapping in Judaism is punishable by death. No such thing as a kidnapping people and making them slaves. The only slave that's in the Bible is a slave that or he sold himself because he has nothing to eat, he's looking for a foster home, or the court, because he stole money and he cannot afford it, cannot pay back, we sell him to work to make up the money. Now, how you sell him? You sell him for 6 years. And the 7th year, he has to be released. Now, if after 6 years, he likes to be by his owner, he doesn't want to leave. For many reasons, whatever the reason is. Then the owner will take him to the Beit Din, and they make him a little hole in his ear, right? Like an earring. And they'll tell him, this ear that heard at Mount Sinai, that we are the servant of God and not servant of others, and he doesn't listen, he should get a hole, so to speak. And he can stay by his owner until when? Until the Jubilee. No such thing as two societies in Judaism. A society of slaves and a society of owners. Doesn't exist. The longest you can be a slave is by the 50th year, and then we have to send you away. We'll give you a lot of goods. The owner has an obligation to reward. The whole idea of tipping, you tip a person after a meal or whatever is doing service for you, is coming from the Torah. That the slave, after 6 years, the owner has to give him everything, all the goods, send him home with a big retirement package. For the 50th or the Jubilee, for sure, but he'll send him home. If he likes it or not, he's becoming a free man. Then these two things are happening in the Jubilee.
When is the Yovel? When?
We do not, let's continue, we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a Jubilee. Number 11.
It is a Jubilee that the year of the 50th year shall be for you. You shall not plant, and you shall not reap. Even crops that grew on their own, you shall not gather. The grapes of its unintended vineyard, for it is a Jubilee, it shall be holy to you. Whatever is in the field, you may eat its produce.
Yes, then what is happening? The Jubilee year, again, it's like the Shemitah. You cannot gather, you cannot plant, you cannot reap, you cannot do anything. Because this is a Jubilee, it's a holy year. Okay?
Oh. On this Jubilee year, each man shall return to his ancestral land.
Exactly. Go ahead, continue. If you sell anything,
if you sell anything to your neighbor or purchase something from your neighbor, do not cheat one another. According to the number of years after the Jubilee, you shall purchase land from your neighbor. According to the number of produce years, he shall sell it to you.
how many years are you going to have? If Jubilee is in 5 years, don't sell them for 50 years. It's only 5 years. The same thing is in the other direction. Go ahead. Based on the
abundance of years, you shall increase its purchase price, and based on the lack of years, you shall decrease its purchase price. Since it is the number of produce seasons that he is selling to you.
We are selling seasons. Not how many years. How much produce are you going to have here? No sabbatical and no Jubilee. How many years are you going to have, really? That's what you're selling.
You shall not cheat one another, and you shall fear your God, for I am Adonai your God.
Because sometimes a person can cheat in a way that nobody will catch him. Then God says you have to fear God. God knows the truth, not people.
You shall fulfill my statutes and keep my laws and fulfill them, and you will then live in the land in security.
If we want to live in security, we have to observe the Shemitah. Now, Jubilee is not observed today. Because it's only a rabbinic mitzvah, the Jubilee, they made Shemitah, and they didn't do Jubilee. I think the main reason, I remember many years ago to read about it, is because it's much harder. Simple as that. That's the ultimate reason.
But
The rabbis are practical.
who knew how many hands have passed with this one piece of land anyway,
What do you mean?
from today, going back.
No, but the rabbis, right after the destruction of the temple, from a biblical point of view, whenever the majority of the Jewish people is not on the land, we do not have to observe the sabbatical years or Shemitah, because God says, when you will come to the land, when all of you will come. If it's not all of you, you don't have to observe it. The rabbi said to continue the mitzvah of Shemitah as a way not to forget the mitzvahs. That when Moshiach comes and the majority of the Jewish people will be there again, or the temple will be rebuilt, we should continue to observe the mitzvah. And he said, don't forget. But why they didn't continue the Jubilee even as a rabbinic mitzvah?
It's too harsh.
Because it was too hard. That's the ultimate reason.
Is the Shemitah year correlated all the way back to ancient times, so that it's always been the same time, or was there a gap, and then they just started?
First of all, the Jews were away for 70 years.
Right.
They started the counting a few times. I don't think it's
not sequential.
I cannot tell you for sure, but I remember to read a lot about it. It's a lot. There is even an argument about under the 50 years. I mean, you want to know the 7 years, it's exactly. The point is that it started, whatever the counting started, that's the Beidin made it, that's what God wants, and this is the 7th year, understand? The idea is that the 7th year, you should rest. That the land should, the statement is that the land belongs to God, not to me. But Jubilee is not observed today, only in the time of the temple. But the sabbatical is observed. And it's a hard mitzvah to observe but that's what he says. If you will observe this mitzvahs, you will then live in the land in security.
When the 10 tribes were lost due to the Assyrians, and we're talking roughly 700 BCE, you no longer had to worry about the land going off to different tribes, because you had Judah, a few Benjaminites, and obviously the Levites had no land.
So,
but isn't the purpose of the Jubilee to make sure that the land stays within the various tribes that it was originally
that's
assigned
part of
to?
the Jubilee. A slave go home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there is more to the Jubilee
Yeah.
than just the land. And you can say even more. The moment the majority of the 10 tribes were exiled, there was not anymore the majority of the Jews on the land. But I'm sure they continued to observe the Shemitah, no matter what, because the temple was there. Let's read Rashi, page 366, Rashi number 18.
You will then live in the land in security, for by the sin of neglecting the sabbatical year, Israel is exiled, as it is said. The land will then be appeased for its Shabbases, and be appeased for its Shabbases. The 70 years of Babylonian exile correspond as punishment for 70 sabbatical years, which they abolished.
Now, obviously, not everybody abolished, but some people abolished. You understand? Then the reason for exile, it's written in many places, and it's learned from the next week's Parshah, actually, Bechukotai. Then the land will rest, because you didn't allow the land to rest. Therefore, we have to take you out of here and let the land rest. But if we will do it, then we will have everything. Then now we're going to survive. Now we're going to read about it.
So if you do the math, though, if they didn't observe 70 sabbatical years, it's 490 years.
No.
Which 490 years
Before the
the
temple,
exile?
even before the first temple.
See, yeah, so they didn't
So?
do it even from before the first temple.
Surprise, surprise.
Does
Very
it
big
say
surprise.
anything that land rested for 2,000 years and now we can work it?
Doesn't work like this. When God finally brought us to the land of Israel, and we had the merit, He gave us the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah, we should grab it. For 2,000 years, Jews would wish they would have the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of sabbatical. Now they finally have it, throw it away. It's like a person is wishing, I wish I would have a boy I can make the mitzvah of Brit Milah. And then he has the boy and says, no, I don't want to make a Brit Milah. He had 7 girls, 8 girls. Now he says, God, give me a boy. I want to be able to make a bris. And then he has a boy. Garnished. God, 2,000 years we were praying. When we returned to Zion, we prayed always right towards Jerusalem, the Kotel, in all our minds, in all our prayers. The prayer book is full with prayers for Jerusalem. And then we come back to Israel, and I'll tell God, no, we have it our way. 367. Now is the concern that everybody was raising here. Top of the page, number 19.
The land will give forth its fruit, and you will eat your fill, and you will live securely on it. You will say, Ask, what will we eat in the 7th year? For lo, we have not planted nor gathered our produce.
If you shall ask, what are we going to eat in the 7th year? If we will not gather, will not plant, we will not gather our produce. The question that every human being asks. I think it's the only place in the Torah that refers to what if you will ask. Usually the Torah says Allah and finished. Deal with it, boy. This is the only place in the Torah that the Torah speaks to the human mind. And if you were going to ask, what's going to be? Because it's a very... Go ahead. I shall
direct my blessings to you in the 6th year, and it will produce enough for 3 years. You shall plant in the 8th year, but you will still be eating from the old produce until the 9th year. Until the new produce ripens, you shall eat from the old.
It will be enough food on the 6th year. Like the manna used to come on Friday, a double portion. Like some years you do the stock market is doing very well and it's good enough for a few years. Like some years your business is doing amazing and that you say, if not for last year, good money, I wouldn't survive this year. That's it. What's savings? That's savings. That's why the Jews are such big saviors. They have all the kind of plans for 1K and for this and for Ahin and planning. It's all coming from here. The whole 6 years, they are saving money for the 7th year. But God says in the 6th year, first of all the years will be good years. But in the 6th year, I'll give you so much produce, it will be enough for 3 years.
Now, am I also seeing the Sefirot represented here?
We will get there. We are not going to the Sefirot yet.
Okay.
We have somebody who is in charge of it. Who's sitting next to you. He's in charge of the Kabbalah part. Okay. You can talk to him later about that. The number 369, number 23.
The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine, for you are merely as for foreigners, and residents the line before me.
Okay, what Hashem says here is something very powerful. The land should never be sold forever. It means to say, by the Jubilee they have to come back. Because it's not your land. What can you sell? You sell something that's yours. It's not yours. It's mine. God says it's mine. I give you permission to use the land. You're already selling it? What is this? Grandmother's business? What is this? It's my land. You are foreigners and residents in the land. You're a resident if you are with me. You're foreigners if you are not with me. That's what really is the reading here. Hashem says, Ki li haaretz. Li means mine. The land belongs to me. There is li rod.
Oh my goodness.
Li means mine. Hashem says li rod. When we call the name li rod, that's not a good name. Because we say li rod, the road is mine. Hashem says li rod. It's his land, not my land.
It's good that it's his land.
Remember, there was many years ago, the Chabad used to go in New York to another community to spread Judaism on the holiday of Shavuos. And the main street was Lirod there. And they said they don't want Chabad to come. The Rebbe said, they say Lirod. The truth is, the world belongs to God. The land belongs to Hashem. Li, Hashem says it, Li, not me. Page 370.
In all of your ancestral lands you shall grant redemption to the land.
Okay, then what we have here? We have here a cycle of 7 days a week. 7 years, right? Sabbatical. Then we have 7 times 7, 49. And this is the 50th year, the Jubilee. The same thing we have it in the days. We have 7 days. Every week is 7 days. And then we have the counting of the Omer. 7 times 7. And the ultimate is Shavuos, the 50th. You see how the whole cycle goes, that the whole system works in the same way. And that's what we now in Shavuos. What we were yesterday, the 20th. Yesterday we finished the third week, right? Today
we start the 21st.
Yeah. Yesterday was we finished 3 weeks of the counting of the Omer. and we have another 4 weeks until Shavuos, exactly 4 weeks, then really that's what it's all about. It's the same idea of the 49 years. It's all about climbing the spiritual ladder in these 49 days, and the same idea is in the land of Israel. Here it speaks more about selling land and getting into the all details of it.
There's no count for the Jubilee year, like 1 through 50, like we do for the Omer.
No counting. I don't know when the Jubilee is. Maybe some counters and they know. Some people know that, but I don't.
But there's a difference. One's for the land, and the counting the Omer is for yourself. It leads you to a personal Shavuos of your own, where you receive the Torah. This is a relationship with Hashem.
Right.
The land itself is a separate.
It is. You're
different.
right. It's just the idea of the cycle 7 times 7.
What do you mean? You mean it's two separate things, you're saying?
Well, it's two separate things because one's with the land, it's a physicality, whereas the counting the Omer is a personal avoda, and you leads to your own personal Shavuos because if your count's different.
But even more, the land in Judaism, physical is spiritual. There is no physical without spiritual, no spiritual without physical. In Judaism, the land is holy. What do you mean the land is holy? You tell me, I have a spiritual thing, I have a thought about God, I have a holy thought. What do you mean the land? The land is dirt. The land is holy. That's the job is not just to become holy, but everything around you to make it holy. The job of a Jew is to take a physical thing and make them spiritual. What's a mezuzah? You take a parchment that was made from a skin of an animal, and you write under the Shema, and when a Jew writes on the Shema on the skin, that the Shema becomes holy. The paper becomes a holy paper. You're not allowed to throw it away, you kiss it, right? The concept of kissing something physical and revering it and keeping it holy is a Jewish concept. Because it sanctifies the physical world. That's really the job. By observing the laws of the agricultural laws in Israel, not just Shemitah, Sabbatical, it's about Maser, giving tithe, all of this is recognizing that the land belongs to God, the land is holy. That's why it's called the Holy Land. That if you don't call it, if you don't observe the Shemitah, how is this going to be a holy land? I mean, this land is a nature that, as we're going to learn next week's Parshah, if you don't observe the Shemitah, the land, so to speak, is like somebody who's throwing up. The body cannot handle the food. The land is throwing us up, is spitting us out, because the land cannot handle non-holy behavior. That's a problem. And that's why in Israel, when somebody lives in Israel, is demanded from him a much higher level of spirituality. Because when you live it's called Palterin Shel Melech, and you live in the capital of God, you better behave. You don't want to be in the capital? Fine. You don't want to be? Fine. Move away. Go to the rural lands. Don't be in Washington D.C. and deny the government. Go to Nebraska. I don't know where. Wherever you want. Montana. I don't know where. And do whatever you want. You cannot be right here and be again and do it against the government. The land of Israel is the house of God. Is the D.C. is Washington D.C. of God. You are here, you better behave. You better live up to your expectations. You have to be more educated, so to speak. You have to respect the land, respect the law, you respect yourself, the mitzvahs. But that's really the goal of the Jewish people, the goal of the whole Shemitah and the whole Jubilee is to make the world a holy land. To make the whole land holier. And it's a huge test, but it's a big accomplishment when we do it. Then really, when you get a more spiritual connection, tell me, when you have 50 days that you count the Omer, or when you close down your business for all year, where is the connection? Connections is not by how many times we pray. Connection is when we are ready to
Is it a mitzvah to count the Omer?
sacrifice.
Is it a mitzvah to count the Omer?
You know, I looked in many mitzvahs, in many stories in the Bible, in many places. It's always what made the difference was when somebody was ready to sacrifice. It was with Nachshon ben Aminadab was ready to jump into the water. If it was by the story of Purim, the 22,000 children who were ready to die for God. Even any story you go, what was the Maccabees? People were ready to give their lives for Judaism, for the Jewish people, therefore they win the war. Then God interfered. It doesn't work like this. Everybody stands like this. We split the sea. We will walk in. Why not? If it's dry and then no mud, then we'll walk in. Then really, 50 days to count the Omer and then to eat a cheese. A blintzes. It's not such a. It's hard. I don't say it's nothing, but you can survive it. But when you close, when you stop to work for all year, and your whole business, if anybody who can think about that, it's unbelievable, the test that is God is asking from these farmers. And they do it happily. You read many people, they say, it's a hard mitzvah, but I'm so happy to do it, and Hashem will help me. And they do it the right way. They don't try to do not, don't sell it to the Beit Din, and they don't sell it to the Arabs. They just do it. They close down everything and finished. And when they do this is spirituality. This is real spirituality. Sacrifice when a person is ready to give up. Spirituality is when a person, for example, a person is giving charity. He gives something from his blood. That's spirituality. To pray. What is our other person has for my prayers? Nothing. Pray. Yeah, that's all to pray. Pray a little more. Fine. I'm not against prayer, don't get me wrong, that's my business. But there is a story about a man came to the rabbi, he says, my son went crazy. He said, what happened? He says, he davens and he learns the whole day. So the rabbi looks at him, he says, why is he crazy? That's what I do. He says, Rabbi, that's your job. But why is he doing it? Then the idea of spirituality is achieved by sacrifice. That's the name of the game. The more sacrifice is involved in the mitzvah, the more spiritual the mitzvah is. We don't sit around the fire and we sing in a matov u'manayim and we get spiritual. We put our hands and we close our eyes and we feel so spiritual. It doesn't work like this. Spirituality is sacrifice. That's the name of the game. The more you sacrifice, the more you invest in the business, the more you get out of it, right? And the question is how much you invested in Judaism. How much you invested in this business. That's the question. 2 people put on film. One just was born like this in a religious family, did it all his life. Fine. Put on when I get them in the morning, what am I going to do? No, something else. When I start to run 5 miles, well, I'm crazy. Much easier to put on film. But somebody who never put on film, gets up and puts on film, he sacrificed. And that's what counts in the eyes of God. Then that's what Shemitah is all about, sacrificing. It's all about giving up it's financially a very big sacrifice. Then it's emotionally a big sacrifice. A person who gets up every morning to work, anybody who lost a job, anybody who was for a time was out, knows what it is. Or people who retire. He wakes up and now what? Oh, go to yeshiva, really? 6 years I didn't open the book, now go to yeshiva to learn Torah. You should, but... and then there is the emotional part. People can walk into my land and take what I'm standing with everybody online. I was the sheriff of town. I'm the owner of all the land. They're all working for me. Suddenly for a full year, they're all the same like me. Then the emotional, the psychological, the spiritual, the financial, the whole of this thing together, you put it together, it's an unbelievable mitzvah. And when somebody passes this test, there is a line that there are people who are their heroes are called in the Bible. People who observe this mitzvah. That's what's so special about this mitzvah.
Thank you.